Okay, good day to all of you, my dear students. So today we're going to discuss another lesson which is related to quadratic equation. So we are now on lesson number 6. Lesson number 6 will focus on finding the nature of the roots of a given quadratic equation. In this lesson, we are here going to find out the roots of that given quadratic equation. So basically, we are not here going to find out for the solutions of the quadratic equation, but we are going to identify what would be the roots of those solutions. Are the roots rational or are the roots irrational? Or are the roots of it are non-real numbers? So in this lesson, we can identify that. So uh, in to further to formally start with it, so let's start it by having these numbers. So we do have four numbers here. So we do have the 225, 10, 0, and negative 126. So if we're going to look at 225, 225 particularly is a positive number which is a perfect square. We know already what perfect square is, what number are perfect squares. So perfect squares, yung number, if a given number is to be multiplied by itself. So the product of it is a perfect square. So 225 is a perfect square because this is the product of 15 times 15. So that is a positive perfect square. Then we do have here 10. Then we know that 10 is also positive, but 10 is a non-perfect square. Then we also have here 0. Then we also have negative 126, which is a negative number. So with the help of these numbers, later on, malalaman natin what's the use of these numbers wherein we call perfect square, positive non-perfect square, 0, and negative numbers. So in order for us to find out for the nature of the roots of a given quadratic equation, all we have to do is to use the what we call discriminant. We need the what we call discriminant. What is this discriminant that we are pertaining to? According to this, discriminant determines the nature of the roots of a given quadratic equation. So how that discriminant determines the nature of the roots of a quadratic equation? So what's that discriminant that we are pertaining to? So discriminant is using the expression b squared minus 4ac. So this expression b squared minus 4ac, that is what we call as the discriminant. So with the help of this expression, we can determine the nature of the roots of a given quadratic equation. But how are we going to do that? So since we do have here an expression involving a, b, and c, so in a given quadratic equation, we do have there a, b, and c, which are the numerical coefficients of a given quadratic equation. So basically, for you to get the discriminant, all you need to do is to get the value of a, b, and c in a given quadratic equation, then substitute it on this given expression, then evaluate. Whatever number uh, that will come out, that will come up when we evaluate this, that will be the basis in order for us to find the nature of the roots. So in order for us to do that in a systematic manner, still we are here going to apply certain steps, or we do have here things that we need to remember. So what are those things that we need to remember? So this time, those things that we need to remember, we still hide it in an acronym, or words wherein uh, we can wherein those words are we are going to relate it in life. So those things that needs to remember in finding the nature of the roots, we'll hide it in an acronym na tatawagin nating ibato. So there's two meaning of it. Ibato, it's like you throw it, or ibato, you have to, it's like being different. So we'll explain the two. So unahin natin yung ibato, throw it. So if you do have feelings na hatred or kung meron ka mang kinasasamaan ng loob, so yung feeling mo na nararamdaman na hindi maganda, you just throw it all away. Kasi mas maganda na malinis yung kalooban mo nang wala kang inaalalang iba na makakasira sa'yo bilang tao. So, lahat ng mga iniisip nating negative, lahat ng mga nararanasan nating problema, so hindi dapat natin siya tatalikuran. Haharapin natin siya, then para later on, we have to throw it all away. So that wala kang iniisip-isip. Your mind is free to do the things that you want to do. So, pag wala kang masyadong iniisip, so mas makakapag-isip ka ng mas mabuti kasi yung mga problema dinaranasan mo o yung mga hindi magandang nararanasan mo sa buhay mo, you just going to throw it all away. So, yun yung isang message na sinatawag natin iba to. And the other one is iba to, being different. So, all of us are created differently. So, may mga iba sa atin na may mga kakayanan na hindi kayang gawin ng ibang tao. So, maaring hindi mo pa na-discover sa sarili mo yung kakayanan mong yun, but maybe in the future, so malaman mo ano ba yung meron ka na hindi kayang gawin ng iba. Ano ba yung kaya mong gawin na hindi nila kaya. Kasi oo, may mga pagkakatulad. One person can sing, you can also sing. One person can dance, you can also dance. But there is there is this one unique thing in you na ikaw lang yung makakagawa. All you have to do is to discover it. So kasi sinabi nga, all of us are created differently. So we are all unique individual. So iba-iba ang klase ng tao. So that's why we have to realize it. So whenever you encounter a person, so iisipin mo agad, that person is not like you. So in that way, you are also respecting that person. So kasi, ang sabi nga natin, since iba-iba ang tao, so dapat respeto natin kung ano man yung meron sa isang tao na yon. So maaring yung tao na yon, may nagagawa siya na hindi mo kayang gawin. So also that person, meron siyang hindi kayang gawin na nagagawa mo. So all you have to do is just respect the person because we know that all of us are created differently. So that's why we have to also remember, we have to know that all of us are different or we are all unique individual. So ayun yung message nung things that we needs to remember in finding the nature of the root. So ano nga ba iba to na sinasabi natin? Let's start with the first one, I. I stands for if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0 and a perfect square, then the two roots are real, rational, and unequal. So sinabi dito, if your b squared minus 4ac, so we made use of this discriminant, that's b squared minus 4ac, and you come up with an answer which is greater than 0. So you mean to say it's positive. So if you got positive, then that positive number is a perfect square. Then the two roots, we know that there are two roots of a given quadratic equation, and that two roots, if that is the case that we got, if we made use of discriminant, the two roots are real, rational, and unequal. So what does it mean? So it means that the solutions that we are going to get when we solve the given quadratic equations are exact values. So it can be whole numbers, it can be fractions. Basta it's exact value. So that's what we mean by it. Then second, B. B stands for, but if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, and this time it's not a perfect square, then the two roots are real, irrational, and unequal. Again, if your b squared or your discriminant is greater than 0, still, that's positive. Pinagkaiba natin ganyan, di ba? Both are positive. but one is perfect square, but and the other one is a non-perfect square. So if that's positive and not a perfect square, then the two roots are real, irrational, and unequal. So ano ibig sabihin if it's real, irrational, and unequal? So the solutions when you solve a given quadratic equation are uh, two unequal roots which are irrational. Pag sinabi natin irrational, not exact. So ibig sabihin, the solutions still includes radical sign. For example, positive, negative square root of 5. So those are solutions. So that means we come up with that kind of solution. That is when your discriminant is a positive number and not a perfect square. Then third, sabi dito, and if b squared minus 4ac, or again, the discriminant is equal to 0, then there is exactly one real root or one real solution. So, bakit one real root? So, if you're given quadratic equation, uh, and if you're given quadratic equation's discriminant is equal to 0, then the solutions to that given quadratic equations are the same. So that's why we call the nature of that solutions or roots as one real roots or one real root. Because again, the solutions to a given quadratic equation are the same or they are equal. So, mangyayari yon if you find out the discriminant which is equal to 0. Then lastly, 2 stands for to end this, if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, then there is no real roots. So again, if your discriminant, you made use of this expression and you come up with a discriminant which is less than 0, or in other words, is a negative number, then there is no real roots. So meaning to say, the solutions are non-real numbers. So dito na ilalabas yung tinatawag nating imaginary numbers. So since now we are not dealing with non-real numbers, so if you ever encounter an expression or an equation wherein you are asked to solve for it, so just write there no real roots because we are only dealing with real solutions or real numbers. So again, if your discriminant is a negative number, then its nature is no real roots. So again, in order for us to find out the nature of the roots of a given quadratic equation, all we have to do is to remember the what we call ibato. So in order for you, that will help you in finding for the nature of the roots of a quadratic equation. So now, let's apply these things that we need to remember into examples. So in finding the nature of the roots of a given quadratic equation. So let's have example number 1. So we do have here x squared minus 3x minus 10 is equal to 0. So the given equation is already written in general form or in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So for you to make use of discriminant, it should be written in that form. So you are doing that in order for you to identify easily the value of A, B, and C. So we come up there with the value of A, which is 1. That's the numerical coefficient of x squared. B, the value is negative 3, the numerical coefficient of the middle term, while C is negative 10. Having those values of A, B, and C, we are now going to make use of the expression that we call discriminant. So that expression is b squared minus 4ac. So what are we going to do with the help of the value of a, b, and c that we got from the given equation? We are just going to substitute it in here. Then you are going to evaluate that expression. So if you're going to substitute, it will come up with b squared, which is negative 3 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, then C, which is negative 10. Then simplify first this part, then we'll come up with 9, or just simplify, we also simplify this, and we have negative 3 squared, which is 9. Then negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times negative 10, to come up with positive 40. So ang magiging 9 plus 40 yon. Then simplify, we come up with the answer as 49. 49 is a positive number. So that 49 is what we call as the discriminant. Now, with the help of that number, we are now going to identify here the nature of the roots of a given quadratic equation. So, ano ba yung 49? Let's go back dun sa steps sa needs to remember. So, ano ba yung 49 natin? Yung 49, yun yung ang 49 is a positive number. So, dalawa lang naman yung choices natin na positive number. Yung 49 ba, perfect square o non-perfect square? So, 49 ay perfect square. So, if 49 is since 49 is a perfect square, therefore, we can say that the nature of the roots of a quadratic equation, if we're going to solve this quadratic equation, its nature are two real, rational, and unequal roots. So sa madaling salita, if we are going to solve this given quadratic equation, we will come up with the solutions as exact values. So exact yung makukuha nating values when we solve the given quadratic equation. So ganun lang natin kinukuha yung nature of the roots. What we need to do is to find out first for the what we call discriminant. Then, with the help of that discriminant, we can find out for the nature of the roots. Let's try another example. So let's have example number 2 here. So in example number 2, we do have here x squared plus 5x plus 3 is equal to 0. So again, it's already written in a square in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, so that we can identify right away values of a, b, and c. So the value of a is again 1, the value of b this time is 5, while the value of c is 3. Then with the use again of the expression we call the discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac, let us substitute these values to this expression. So if we're going to do that, we'll come up with 5 squared, which is b. b is 5, that's 5 squared, minus 4 times 1 as the value of a, and times 3 as the value of c. Then simplify 5 squared together with this. Then we come up with 5 squared, which is 25, minus 4 times 1, that's negative 4 times 3. We come up with 25 minus 12. And 25 minus 12 is equal to 13. So that 13 is what we call as the discriminant. Again, babalikan ulit natin yung needs to remember in order for us to identify the nature of the roots. Since 13 is positive, so again, there's two options here, the positive. But 13, i-analyze natin, is 13 a perfect square or non-perfect square? So 13 is a non-perfect square. So that's why we are going to make use of this. So if you sabi ito, if your discriminant is greater than 0 or positive pero hindi non-perfect square, then the two roots are real, irrational, and unequal roots. So in meaning to say, if we are going to solve this quadratic equation using any methods in solving quadratic equation, we will come up with an answer which are two real, irrational, and unequal roots. Meaning to say, its solutions are not exact. So, its solutions, yung solutions na may iwan pang square root sign. So, ganun yung mga example ng solutions na matatawag natin ang nature niya ay two real, irrational, and unequal roots. Nakasunod so far on the second example. So, let's try another example, number 3. So, on number 3 here, we do have x squared minus 8x plus 16 is equal to 0. Again, ulitin natin, in order for you to apply the finding the discriminant, you should arrange first the equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Because in that way, we can identify easily values of A, B, and C. So let's identify A, B, and C here. So the value of A is 1, B is negative 8. So ito yon, and C is equal to 16. Then, using the expression B squared minus 4AC, let's start substituting. So we come up with negative 8 squared, that's the value of B, minus 4 times 1 times 16. Then, um, isolate it, simplify it, so we come up with negative 8 squared is 64, then minus 4, negative 4 here times 1, that's negative 4 times 16, that's also 64. Then 64 minus 64 is equal to 0. So that would be your discriminant. So since your discriminant is 0, balik ulit tayo. Sabi dito, if your discriminant is equal to 0, then, according to the third, then there is exactly one real root. So therefore, we can say that since 0 is the discriminant of example number 3, then therefore, that its nature is one real root. So sa madaling salita, if we are going to solve this given quadratic equation, we will come up with an answer or the solutions as an equal number. So, ibig sabihin, the solutions to the given quadratic equations are the same or they are equal. So you will find out that easily if you're going to find out for the discriminant of it, and you'll find if you find the discriminant which is equal to 0, then the solutions, the roots, or the nature of that quadratic equation is one real root. That's example number 3. Let's continue. So let's have here example number 4. So we have 2x squared here minus 7x plus 10 is equal to 0. And again, what we're going to do first is to identify values of A, B, and C. So the value of A is 2, the value of B is negative 7, while the value of C is 10. And again, using the expression B squared minus 4AC, let's start substituting for it. So we'll come up with negative 7 squared because B is negative 7 minus 4 times A is 2, while C is 10. And negative 7 squared is 49. Then negative 4 times 2 is 8 times 10, that is 80. Then we come up with 49 minus 80. And 49 minus 80, the answer is negative 31. So your negative 31 is your discriminant. Now, so what would be the nature of the roots of this given quadratic equation if we're going to solve it? So since we found out that its discriminant is equal to negative 31. So let's go back to the needs, the things that we need to remember. So sabi dito, if your discriminant is less than 0, or in other words, it's a negative number, then its nature is no real roots or no real solutions. So therefore, we can say that since negative 31 is the discriminant of the given quadratic equation, we can say that its nature is or are no real roots. So that means to say that when we solve this given quadratic equation, we will not come up with an answer as real numbers. Because the solutions when we solve for this are non-real numbers or yung mga tinatawag nating imaginary numbers. And since we are not dealing with those kinds of equation as of the moment, so we are going to just write no real roots when we encounter that kind of equation. So by finding the discriminant, so we can identify right away if the given quadratic equations, if the roots of a given quadratic equations are real roots or non-real roots.
Okay, let's proceed now on answering our next example on identifying or determining the nature of the roots of a given quadratic equation. So let's have example number 5. So the given is 5x squared plus 8x plus 1 is equal to 0. So in order for us to find out the nature of the roots of that given quadratic equation, what you are going to do first is to identify the value of a, b, and c. So the value of a there is 5, while the value of b is 8, and c is 1. So by having those values of a, b, and c, and using the expression b squared minus 4ac, which is the expression that we call discriminant, in finding the discriminant, all we have to do is to substitute those values of a, b, and c to the given expression. So it's just like we're going to evaluate that expression. So let's start substituting. We come up with 8 squared minus 4 times the value of a, which is 5, times the value of c, which is 1. Then let's simplify this part. We'll come up with 8 squared, which is 64 when we do 8 times 8. Then minus 4 times 5, that would be 20, times 1, that would be 20. Then subtract, we'll come up with 64 minus 20, which is equal to 44. So the value that we got is 44. So 44, going back to the things that we have to remember. So if your discriminant, so that means this is your discriminant. So if your discriminant is positive and it's a perfect square, then it's the nature are two real, rational, and unequal. But if it's positive but non-perfect square, the nature is two real, rational, irrational, and unequal roots. So going to look at 40, you're just going to analyze if it's perfect square or non-perfect square. So upon doing it, you'll find out that 44 is a non-perfect square. So therefore, we can find out its nature. So the nature of it, of the solutions of this given quadratic equation, are two real, irrational, and unequal roots. So meaning to say, if we are going to solve this given quadratic equation using any methods that we have presented in solving quadratic equation, we will find out that its solutions are two real numbers which are irrational numbers. So sa madaling salita, their solutions are not exact. So yung solutions niya may iwan pang square root sign on its solution. So that's why we call it irrational. And nakuha natin yun ng mas madali, or nalaman natin yun ng mas madali by simply getting its discriminant. Since ang discriminant ay 44, which is a positive number, which is a non-perfect square, so we have that nature of that given quadratic equation. So, any question on example number 5? So if there is none, let's try to answer another example. Okay, let's answer now another example. So let's have example number 6. Example number 6 is 6x squared plus 13x plus 9 is equal to 0. So again, before we find out for the discriminant of it, all you have to do is first to find out the value of a, b, and c. So the value of a is 6, the value of b is 13, while the value of c is 9. Because these values will help us in finding or identifying the discriminant with the help of the expression b squared minus 4ac. So that discriminant will help us on finding the nature of the roots of that given quadratic equation. All you have to do is to substitute these given values of a, b, and c to the expression. Then evaluate it. So we come up with 13 squared minus 4 times 6 times 9, which is the value of c. Then it will be equal to 13 squared, which is equal to 169. That's 13 times 13. Then minus 4 times 6 times 9 will have 216. Then from there, we have 169 minus 216 will come up with negative 47. So we come up with the value which is negative 47 when we evaluate this expression using these values of A, B, and C. So that negative 47 is what we call now as the discriminant. Now, going back to the things that we have to remember, we said that if your discriminant is a negative number, then the nature of the roots of the given quadratic equation is no real roots. So sa madaling salita, if we are going to solve this given quadratic equation, so we will find out that its solutions are non-real roots. Okay, this time let's answer example number 7. So the given is 3x squared plus 2 is equal to 5x. So if you are going to analyze that given equation, so it was not arranged yet in a form ax squared plus bx is equal to 0. So it would be best if you are going to arrange it first in that form so that we can correctly identify values of a, b, and c. So if we're going to do that, so we have to move 5x to the left side of the equation. So we'll have 3x squared minus 5x plus 2 is equal to 0. So as I was saying, if it's already in the right form of the equation, we can correctly identify a, b, and c, values of a, b, and c. So the value of a here is 3, while the value of b is negative 5, and c is 2. Having that values of a, b, and c, we can make use now of the expression b squared minus 4ac, which is the expression on finding the discriminant. So what we are going to do is to substitute these values of a, b, and c to the given expression, then evaluate it. So we'll have negative 5 quantity squared minus 4 times 3 times 2. Then simplify, we'll have negative 5 squared, which is equal to 25, minus 4 times 3, that's 12 times 2, which is 24. Then 25 minus 24 is equal to 1. So that 1 that we got when we evaluate that expression using the values of a, b, and c, that is what we call as the discriminant. So that discriminant will help us to identify the nature of the roots of this given quadratic equation. So going back to the things that we have to remember, if your discriminant is positive, so positive, and if it's positive, you have to identify if it's perfect square or non-perfect square. So since one is a perfect square, then we can conclude that the nature of the roots of that given quadratic equation are two real, rational, and unequal roots. So sa madaling salita, if we are going to solve this given quadratic equation using any methods in solving quadratic equation, we will come up with an exact value. So, not unlike yung other solutions na may pang radical sign, ito wala. So, it's either the solutions are whole numbers or the solutions are fractions. So, ganun yung magiging sagot when your discriminant is an odd number, is a positive number which is a perfect square. So that's how we answer number 7. Next, let's answer again another example. So let's have example number 8. So example number 8, the given is 7x squared is equal to 4x plus 9. So just like example number 7, example number 8 was not yet arranged in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So just like what we did on example number 7, so let us first arrange that in the right form. So we have 7x squared, then move yung 4x, will come up with minus 4x then move also the 9 to the left side of the equation. Magiging minus 9 is equal to 0. Then identify values of A, B, and C. A is 7, B is negative 4, while C is negative 9. Then using those values of A, B, and C, again, let's make use of the expression B squared minus 4AC, which is the expression in identifying the discriminant or determining the discriminant. So, using A, B, and C, substitute it to the expression. So, we'll come up with negative 4 squared minus 4 times 7 times negative 9. So, negative 4 squared is 16. That's negative 4 times negative 4. Then, 4 times 7, that would be equal to negative 28. And negative 28 times negative 9, that will become positive. Negative 28 times negative 9. So, that will be equal to 252. So, correct ba yun? So, 9 times 4 is 36 times 7. So, that is 252. Then, add the 2, we'll come up with 16 plus 252. That would be 268. So, 268, the value that we got there, again, that is what we call as the discriminant. So, having that value of the discriminant, since again, it's positive, and we know that 268 is a non-perfect square, by going back to the things that you have to remember, we can say that the nature of the roots of the given quadratic equation is, or are, two real, irrational, and unequal roots. Again, in other words, if we're going to solve this given quadratic equation using any methods in solving quadratic equation, we'll find out that its solutions are not exact. Just like I am telling you, yung solutions niya may iwan pang radical sign because the solutions are not exact. So that's how we answer example number 8. So let's continue answering more examples. So let's have example number 9. Example number 9, the given is 10x squared plus 17x. 17 is equal to 0. Again, the given is 10x squared plus 17 is equal to 0. So that is an equation where b is equal to 0. So let us identify the nature of the roots of that given quadratic equation. So let's find first a, b, and c. So a is 10, b is 0, because the equation is an equation where b is equal to 0, or quadratic equation where b is equal to 0, and c is equal to 17. So again, using the expression b squared minus 4ac, so let us substitute the values of a, b, and c to the expression, then evaluate it. Then we'll come up with 0 squared minus 4 times 10 times 17. Then this will be cancelled out because that's already 0. Then it will be equal to 10 times 17 will come up with 170. So 170 times negative 4. So that will come up with 680. So we'll come up with the answer which is negative 680. That's again negative 4 times 10, that's negative 40 times 17, that would be negative 680. That negative 680 again is what we call as the discriminant. Then going back to the things that we have to remember, so if your discriminant is a negative number, then we can find the nature of it. So the nature of the given quadratic equation, if you are going to answer it, are no real roots or no real solutions. So madaling salita, if we're going to solve the given quadratic equation, we'll not come up with an answer which are real numbers because its solutions are non-real numbers. And again, since we are not dealing with non-real numbers as of the moment, so if you're going to encounter equations just like that, all you have to do is to simply answer it undefined. Because again, we are not dealing yet with non-real numbers, or the what we call imaginary numbers. So that's how we answer example number 9. Okay, let's have example number 10 now. So, example number 10, the given is 7x squared is equal to 11x. So, that example in number 10, that given quadratic equation was not arranged again in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So that's why we have to arrange it first in that form so that we can correctly identify values of a, b, and c. And also, that given equation is an equation where c is equal to 0. So, arrange it first by moving 7x, 11x rather, on the left side of the equation. So, we'll have 7x squared minus 11x is equal to 0. Then let's identify a, b, and c. So, a is 7, b is negative 11, while c is 0. Then using the expression b squared minus 4ac, which is the expression that we can use in order for us to determine the nature of the roots or determine the discriminant. So by using a, b, and c are values of f, let's substitute it to the given expression, then evaluate. So we'll have negative 11 squared minus 4 times the value of a is 7 times the value of c, which is 0. Then simplify natin. Negative 11 squared is equal to 121. Negative 4 times 7 is negative 28 times 0 is 0. So that means this will be cancelled out. So what will be left is just 121. So 121 is a positive number. And we call that as the discriminant. So since it's a positive number and 121 is a perfect square, then going back to the things that we need to remember, so we can identify the nature of the roots of this given quadratic equation as two real, rational, and unequal roots. So in other words, again, if you are going to solve the given quadratic equation, we'll come up with an answer as exact value. It's either the answers are whole numbers or fractions. So that's how we find out the discriminant or the nature of the roots of example number 10. So let's try the last example. So let's have example number 11. So example number 11, the given is 6x squared is equal to 0. So in example number 11, this is a quadratic equation where b and c is equal to 0. So since it was already arranged in the right form, so let's identify right away values of a, b, and c. So the value of a is 6, b is 0, and c is equal to 0 also. Then using the expression b squared minus 4ac, let us identify the discriminant or determine the discriminant using the values of a, b, and c. By substituting it to the expression, then evaluate it. Then we'll have 0 squared minus 4 times 6 times 0. 0 squared, we know that it is 0. Then negative 4 times 6 is negative 24 times 0 is also 0. So 0 minus 0 is 0. And 0, that 0 is our discriminant. So if your discriminant is 0, according to the things that we have to remember, so we can identify now its nature of the roots. According to it, if your discriminant is 0, then the nature is 1 real root. So ibig sabihin, if we are going to answer the given quadratic equation, we come up an answer which is the same number. So the solutions to a given quadratic equation are the same. So we can identify that by using the discriminant that wherein you can find out its nature as one real roots. Well, one real root rather. So that's how we answer, or that's how we use discriminant in order for us to find the nature of the roots of a given quadratic equation. So hope that you understand the lesson that we tackle and apply it in more examples you want. So that's all for today. Goodbye.